Geocachomaniacs.
Geo Gearheads.
Hey, welcome to the Geo Gearheads. This is episode 522, and tonight we're talking about geocoins. You may ask, what is Geo Gearheads? Well, it's a weekly podcast about geocaching and geolocation games. I'm your co-host, Chris of the Northwest, and the astute watchers may know our host isn't here tonight. So I apologize. However, we have some fabulous guests. First time on Geo Gearheads, I'd like to introduce you to the Landsharkz. Helen and Chris, why don't you introduce yourselves? Tell our fine listeners a little bit about yourself. Perhaps they've never met you before.
Well, we're Landsharkz. I'm Chris. This is Helen. And we live in Victoria, British Columbia, where we also run Landsharkz.ca, which is a geocaching supply store. And one of the things that we specialize in is production of geocoins, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
We've been playing the game since 2000 and something, five? Yeah, 5.
Oh, okay.
So I've been around for a little while. And 6,000, almost 7,000 finds. And
yeah, it's almost 7,000.
Yeah.
We were just away and we were hoping to
open the
reach
top
our
7,000, but we
7,000,
never quite made it.
not quite.
Oh, that's a shame.
That's okay.
Limex says hello to you too.
Hey.
He's in Southern California. No, he's in Northern California tonight. You were just in Southern California.
Yeah, we just got back in Southern California.
There's something kind of nice about palm trees. But,
Yes.
Yeah.
Palm trees.
Yeah.
Geocaches that are dry.
Isn't that amazing? You can find a geocache that doesn't have a rubber seal on it, and yet the paper is dry, and you can sign it with a pencil.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they have other problems, right? Because their plastic containers would deteriorate in the heat and sun, where ours just fill up with water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
We saw a cool 3D printed one down there. It was really neat.
Pinecone?
Yeah. Shh.
Well, I'm not saying which one it is.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever thought of that before.
It was really cool. Actually, we saw 2 3D printed ones. One was in a walking district on Santa Barbara, and it was awesome. They must have measured with calipers exactly where this cache was going to be hidden, and they 3D printed this little container that just fit into this little area. It was perfect. And the highest muggle place, oh my gosh, super high muggle place. We were so impressed. Chris found it. That was really, and the hint was good because we kind of knew we were in the right area, and we knew that we just needed to persevere and just look for the unusual, and it was great.
Nice. Now, I have found some geocaches in Seattle where they're on top of square signposts. So it could be, handicap or, no parking, these signs, but they're not very tall. They're only about 4 feet tall, and they are a 3D printed cap that fits inside of it perfectly.
Right.
Oh, that's cool.
And those I always thought that's really good. That's
really good.
Yeah.
It's
That's
nice
smart.
when you see people that put that kind of care and attention and, time, money into making something so much fun for the rest of us to enjoy.
exactly.
Really
And that's, sitting right out in the open, but people don't think a thing of it.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned about people spending time and making beautiful things. That's kind of what we're here to talk about tonight.
Yes.
Is we want to talk about the life cycle of a geocoin. Now, you guys, when I was up there in December in the Landsharkz HQ, you showed us like geocoins that you had produced, coins that you had produced, not necessarily geocoins, in just 2019. And it was an entire shoebox full. The thing probably weighed a good 25 pounds. So you are creating an incredible amount of coins on a regular basis. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on, because I consider you experts.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that shoebox was I think that was just Navy coins.
That's right.
Like
It was
we
a
also
right.
theme.
Exactly.
it's just one theme of that year.
Mhm.
Because we do Geocoins, of course,
We probably do hundreds of coins and
a year.
some of them and a year, and some are Geocoins, of course.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
lots of military coins, police, fire departments, things like that, and corporate coins as well as the Geocoins. So, lots and lots of things we get to play around with, lots of fun art and fun techniques and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of our Geocoin clients actually are we don't realize that. Well, so for example, we made a coin many years ago for Heinz Canada. They had their 100th, and they actually sent us the digital files for the graphics of their 100th logo, it was on the label of the Heinz ketchup bottle, and they wanted a coin made to give out to their top sales people that year at a conference in Banff. And right before we went to go to production, the gentleman who was Heinz corporate says to us, "Is it possible to make 20 of them into trackable geocoins?" So it turned out he was a geocacher working, with Heinz. And so we, at that time, geocaching.com needed way more coins to be made before it could be trackable. Like, you couldn't just make 20 trackable. So we went straight to Brian Roth and said, "Look, that we have this special request." And so he got permission to have just a few geocoins made trackable of that batch. So
probably one of the rarest geocoins out there.
I think that's probably one of the rarest geocoins out there. Yeah.
Wow.
That was a long time ago, and I've never seen one in the wild, never seen pictures of one. So I don't know what he did with them. No idea. But
Interesting.
So, geocachers show up in the most interesting places.
Don't they though? Yeah.
Yeah. When we think it's a corporate coin or a military coin, and next thing you know, it turns out that it's, a geocacher.
Exactly. So that's a great start to our discussion tonight, right? You've got artwork from a professional artist. Well, I'm not even close to being an artist. What if I sketch something like, say, Mickey Mouse holding a guitar near a campfire, or, maybe it's a giraffe eating grass. It looks the same. It's really hard to tell because, my stick figures, are not very good. And I sketch that on a napkin. Can that become a geocoin?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we deal with clients. Some of them, like Heinz, for example, had a very good idea what they wanted, and they had art done up for their labels. But I guess one of the things with that is that the art that they produce is for print, and print art, while it's good, is not the same as coin art, because it needs to be altered and changed so that it can be produced in metal, and use some of the techniques with enamels and so on that are available to us. So the answer to your question is absolutely 100% yes. And in fact, some of our first geocoins started out literally as napkin sketches. And then we have a team of professional graphic artists that can take those napkin sketches and turn them into art, which then digital art that then gets presented back to you or the client to work back and forth to create art that you love. And then we take that and then go to the factories and do the production part of it. But I think one of the key things is that it's our artists, not only can they draw, but they understand the techniques that are used in making coins, and and it's a combination of those two things. So you may have great art, say, I really want it to look exactly like this, but it needs to be sort of looked at through the lens of a metal, a stamped metal piece that's got enamels.
That is really interesting because, well, first of all, that you could take something that I would draw and turn it into something beautiful would be amazing in and of itself. But taking even beautiful artwork and having to rework it so that it works in metal and enamel, that's fantastic. And that's part of the service you provide. Am I right?
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, our designers, they do their best work when they're given something like some sketches and said, how can we make this look awesome? Because they know what we work with multiple factories, and our designers know what cool things we could do to make that geocoin look amazing that the customer may not even know exists. Like just this week, we suggested something to a customer, and said, we'd really love to try this on your coin. We've never done this on a coin before, but if you've got, a little bit of time, you're not in a super big rush, here's what we'd like to do, and could we try this out on your coin? And they were thrilled. They're excited to have this. So
it can make a coin unique.
Yeah. So if a customer comes with too much, if they come with too much of an idea of this is what I want, this is how I want it to be, they may not get the most awesome coin. If they let us, our team say, how about we do this? How about we do that? If they take their idea and just sort of, add to it, put the icing on the cake in a way.
Mm-hmm.
That
or
works
the
really
enamel
well.
on the metal.
Well, enamel, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. People come to us and don't really know the coin design and production terminology, but they think they do. And we've had some unusual things, like people say, I really want a coin that's painted with 2D dyes. And we're like, okay, or they'll say, I want, 3D enamel. And we're like, yeah, it's not quite right. But, we show us what you've got and we'll help you make this work.
You were mentioning that you work with different factories. Do you sometimes choose the factory based on the design of the coin, knowing that, this one does this type of coin better and this one does this type of coin better?
Yeah, very, very much so. There's a couple of factors that go into that. Part of it is cost. Some factories are more expensive to use than others, but they do some more challenging techniques. And then other factories, maybe they can't do quite as the high-end challenging stuff, but they're really good at the basic stuff. So depending on the complexity of not the complexity of the design, because you can have complex art and anybody can work with that, but the techniques that are used, the types of enamels, the types of metal platings, how they're used, those will determine which factory we choose. There's for example, one type of enamel is called imitation hard enamel. And one of the metal platings we often use is antique silver. And so a lot of factories have a hard time using very light colored hard enamels with antique silver. The antique silver has a tendency to kind of make the surface look dirty. So if we're going to use those two combinations, then we'll go to certain factories that are good at that, rather than choosing, the less expensive factory that's perhaps not so good at that, because the result won't be as nice.
Interesting.
And if somebody says, I need a coin that's, I need it quickly and I need it really, really affordable, then we can suggest to them ways to make it more affordably, so that we'll work with one of the factories. So it's the factories that turn out awesome work if it's like straightforward. They're pretty quick too. So we can help to adjust the art so that it'll work. Geotour coins are often ones that can be done really affordably. Actually, the diamond shaped Geotour coins, that's a good one to take to just a normal great factory without having to go to the super high end ones.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so I've seen a lot of different shapes in Geocoins lately. Perhaps there's even cutouts in them. A lot of these, it started out as you had a round metal disc.
It did.
And maybe you had color on it, maybe you didn't. But that's really changed here. I don't know. Are we talking 5 and 10 years?
I think one of the
15. Well, we were doing casting. Shaped coins are usually cast. They're not stamped.
Some of them are stamped.
Mostly they're. Oh, this one's no. Mostly a cool shaped coin, especially one with cutouts. They're usually die cast. And then the round ones we prefer to make them all stamped brass. But they can be made from zinc as well. But we tend to go with stamped brass. It's got a more of a nicer, heavy feel in your hand. Especially if we're working with military, fire departments, things like that. They want a hefty coin.
But the shaped ones are typically cast. They're typically cast zinc alloys. And I think I would say about 15-ish years ago, the U.S. So one of the biggest markets for coins, and is military, and we focus mostly on the Canadian military. But there's a number of manufacturers or producers in the States that do U.S. Navy, Marines, things like that, coins for those guys. And they actually have pushed the envelope a little bit
With the
shapes. I would say that the U.S. military coins, they're quite often larger and shaped and much more blingy than a lot of the more traditional style that you see around. So I think that's probably where a lot of that stuff sort of started.
Interesting. Okay, I want to get back to the base metal.
Yeah.
But we've got a question here from GSM times 2 that says, when making the Landsat tour Geocoin for NASA, they had to use an American factory. Are military coins subject to that restriction?
No. But that's good. I mean, we do a lot of work for Parks Canada and the Canadian government, and they are asked to please shop and spend your tax dollars in Canada. So they're asked to support Canadian businesses. So it works on this side of the border too, and we have a lot of respect for that, for sure. Yeah, we've done some work for American air shows and American geocachers and American reviewers, but
there are very few North American factories that can make the coins. Used to be a skill that, or something you could get done, especially with like lapel pins. It was those types of companies that would make the sort of branched into making coins. But for the most part, the North American factories that make that style of coin and even the lapel pins, it's small fiddly work, and it's basically with North American labor rates. It's too expensive typically to make the coin. So if all we did was choose North American factories, we wouldn't be able to compete with, because most people don't want to pay that kind of money. So it's unfortunate, but a lot of that skill set has shifted offshore. Just it's the nature of the business, I guess, over the last 20, 30 years. But the quality coming out of Asia is amazing. Some of the pretty careful about which factories we use, but it's important to make sure the factories don't use child labor and that their emissions are well managed, things like that. But otherwise, the quality is really good, and so that's where we end up.
You know, I'm so thankful to have somebody like you handling all that behind the scenes, because I wouldn't even have thought of it.
Yeah. And these things come up. We are licensed to do the coins for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, for example. And these are stipulations that they put on it. And so we actually ride on the backs of some of the audits that happened. You mentioned Mickey Mouse, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But
I threw that out there.
Disney does audits, for example, of the factories that produce their coins and make sure that these things are in line with their corporate principles. And so the factories we use, we get them to show us that they are in fact aligned with these things, and we want to see that they're
certified by Disney. They're certified by some of the big corporations that go through that. So we ride on the coattails of that. We choose the ones that have those certifications because we know that they've got the standards that we're happy to work with. We can sleep at night.
That is good to know. I hadn't considered that. And here's another question I've never asked you. This comes from GSM times 2. How did you get into the business of making coins?
Okay, well,
that was an accident. It's on our website, actually. It's the story of Landsharkz, and it's on our website. But we can give you
the short version is we do a couple of different things with regards to graphic design. One of them is coins, of course. Another one that a lot of people don't know about is we do a lot of sign work for BC Parks and other park agencies, Parks Canada, things like that. A lot of that's map and interpretive signs. So that we've been doing for many years, and the idea of doing up a set of graphics and then producing a product from those graphics is something we've done for a long time with regards to the signs. So we got into geocaching for fun, like everybody else does, and we were doing that for about a year. And then there was the British Columbia Geocaching Association. There was a discussion forum, and somebody wanted to create a coin that represents BC. So people were kind of throwing ideas at the wall or onto the discussion forum, and I sketched up an idea for a coin, and everybody went, "Oh, that's really cool." So then it kind of sat doing nothing for a while, and then a few people started saying, "Oh, how are we going to make this? What do we do?" And we had seen some geocoins in the past, and knew a little bit about how this probably could work. So what we did is we said, "Okay, we'll look after production of the coin. However, so as of now, this coin that I drew anyways, it's our coin. We'll set up a little website called Landsharkz.ca, because Landsharkz was our geocaching name, and we'll make it available, and we'll look after production, and we'll sell it. And we had, I think it was 1,000 coins sold before we even.
Well, it was about 6 weeks. We had.
Yeah, but before we even had them in our hands at the time, we had 1,000 coins sold. I was like, holy smokes.
And we were invoicing people. We were sending people PayPal invoices, and then they would pay it and send it back. And we thought we were just going to do one coin and then go back to making signs again.
Yeah. And then the next thing we know, Lower Mainland Geocaching Association at the time, they said, hey, can you make a coin for us? And thought, well, yeah, we know how to do that. Sure. And then it just snowballed.
Yeah. And then a friend that was in the military, who was a geocacher, came to us and said, well, can you make a coin for my unit? We're like, well, yeah, sure.
For the ship, yeah.
For the ship, yeah.
So said, yeah, that's same thing, just doesn't have a tracking number on it. No, that's no problem. So so then we started doing military coins, and then I mean, the coins speak for themselves as far as we're concerned. They're amazing. So if people see them, they like them.
Yeah, we kind of feel that every coin that's out there is like our business card. It has to look great. It has to be awesome, because that's often the first impression people get of us is when they see the coins.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, you mentioned the base metal, often brass or zinc.
Yeah.
Wet Coaster wants to know, have you made any silver coins?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
solid
silver.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's I would say a specialty item. Our normal factories have a hard time with that. So there's a bit of a specialty to that. They're exceptionally expensive.
I can imagine.
Yeah. We've not done them a lot, but we have done them, and it's very risky for us. It's because it's so expensive. Yeah. But
do you do the? I'm going to use the wrong term, the sample coins or the proofs. That maybe that's the right term.
We'll do them in a different metal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so you have we're going to stay away from silver because nobody can afford it.
No. We're talking $50 a coin, and starting there, and that's for a large run of them. Yeah.
I still remember talking to a member of the Alaska Geocaching Association, and they made coins, and they just went down to their local gold dealer and had them pick through all the gold nuggets that they used to put on the coins themselves. I'm like, wait a minute. Not everybody can do this. This is not normal.
No, we don't go through our gold nuggets.
No.
They went through the nuggets to pick, commonly or uniformly sized ones to be able to attach to their geocoins and send them out. Anyway,
that's very cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Okay, so you're using a brass or you're using a zinc. Does the color you put on top of that determine the base metal? Does a zinc take an antique bronze better than another metal, or does
pretty
that matter?
Well? I would say that all the metal
be sandblasted.
Yeah, so I was going to say all the metal platings that we use, which are typically they're nickel, black nickel, antique silver, polished gold, antique bronze, all those are electroplated onto the base metal, and the zinc and the brass can both accept those. The problems or the differences come in when it comes to treating. We often use sandblasting as a way to make the more recessed areas matte, so that the more raised areas kind of stand out. It gives a little bit of depth to the artwork. Not a lot of companies actually do that, but we do it as a practice, basically, because it really does make a difference. But you can't sandblast the zinc coins. You can only because I guess the zinc is too soft, really. So the zinc coins don't sandblast well. So we typically, if we're doing a coin that would benefit from a sandblasted background, we work really hard to try and make sure that it's a brass coin. But then sometimes you just can't, and you got to do other techniques to textures and things to try and have that same effect. But so there's a few differences when working with the two different metals, but for the most part, you can do pretty well anything with both. But yeah, there's definitely some differences.
It does depend on the factory that you work with too, because some of them have capabilities to do things with zinc that another factory may say, no, I can't do that. And then you go to a different factory, they say, well, yeah, we've got the equipment to do that.
Yeah, really deep 3D relief, like if you've got kind of like
Mm-hmm.
almost like a sculpture, and it's really got a lot of depth to it, like a significant amount of depth. Those are often cast rather than stamped. When you stamp brass, it's a fairly hard material, and you don't it looks really nice, but you don't always get the really deep 3D relief that you might on a zinc. So it really depends on the circumstances, what we're trying to achieve as to which one we'll choose.
Well, they've also said when they stamp brass, they strike it 3 times. And so that affects the, you got to keep the design in mind when you're looking at like little tiny things on a coin. If it's very deep and you're trying to strike it 3 times, you might end up with things that aren't crisp, that aren't sharp.
Yeah, like a shadow. Yeah. If that ever moves slightly and you're dealing with, tight detail, that can.
Yeah. And when the stamped ones too, because you're stamping with dies into a fairly hard material, the bits of the die that stick out and press into the brass, they need to be robust enough to be repeatedly stamped into this brass. So you can't have super thin recessed lines. There's kind of a minimum line thickness, you could say. So we kind of joke around in house here saying it's like drawing amazing art with a bingo marker. Because you can't take a fine tip. There's a minimum kind of thickness, if you like, to the size of what you can do with the stamp metal.
Yeah, and that leads back to what you started with, is that your designers understand this, and they're not going to take something like the Mona Lisa and be able to reproduce it exactly.
Right.
But you've got to, and if you let them design it, it's going to look great. Yes. Rather than push and say, no, it has to look exactly like this.
Yeah. So the last one, I mean, obviously everybody that we do a coin with, they let us know what they'd like, or in some cases, a few things about what's special to them, and then we can help work out the rest of the design. But the more specific one is about what I want exactly this and exactly that. And the more one ties the hands of our artists, honestly, the less amazing the coin's going to be. If you allow our artists, the guys that really know the techniques and the intricacies of working with the metal, then they're allowed to do the design, and they'll incorporate the things that they have at their disposal to make something that's really special.
Nice. Just finding our way asked, do they stamp the brass cold, or do they heat the slug before stamping it?
It's cold stamped.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I would assume there was some heat involved.
Yep.
That, to help. No, I guess that could warp and distort, and
Yeah, no, they're cold stamped, and brass is a heavy copper type metal, and I'm pretty sure you can heat brass and cool it, and it oftentimes with metals you can do a thing called annealing a metal, which is when you soften it, and with steels you typically heat them and cool them quickly. Well, with copper-based materials, typically what you can do is heat them and let them cool slowly, and they'll go soft. But they stamp them cold. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so we've talked about some of the manufacturing techniques. I mean, as we've seen more and more incredible geocoins come out over the last several years, they've become more than just a coin. They're almost sculpture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In what they've become.
Limited edition art and metal.
And have you done some of these fantastic, I'm going to say 3D geocoins, that either connect together? There are some like puzzle pieces that will fit together, or stand on their own.
We haven't done stand on your own ones. We've done spinners,
puzzle pieces that go together.
Yeah. This is I know this is a time zone converter coin.
Right.
This one here.
It's not a geocoin, but
it's not a geocoin, but it's
oh, there you go.
A snowbird jet that spins.
Yep. Cool. Now, are those technically 2 coins that have been attached?
They're definitely they're
pieces.
2 pieces. So what?
Okay.
Yeah. So all of
you're right. I'm sorry. 2 pieces. That would be a better.
All of these coins, basically, what happens is when you communicate with the factory, it's kind of like engineering drawings for each piece. You need to be able to communicate the size, the depth, the metal types, how things are going together, and so on. So when we draw something like that snowbird coin, where it's got an outer ring, and then at the nose tail of the aircraft, there's a pin, and then the aircraft in the middle can spin around that, the axis that those pins form. So the drawings for that, there'll be one drawing showing what the final assembly looks like, but then there's drawings of the two individual parts. And in that particular case, those are made of zinc. The outer ring and the aircraft are both, they're both a zinc base, but the outer ring is plated with polished nickel, and the inner snowbird aircraft is plated with black nickel. So each one is kind of treated and created and painted separately as its own thing, and then they're brought together as the assembly afterwards. So you can do some neat things with that by doing, adding different bits and pieces. We actually did a really cool one years and years ago, and it still sells, and that's the Geocoin Addict coin. And
I think we're almost out of them.
Are we? We had and it's a multi-part coin, and we actually built a mirror into it. So it's got Geocoin Addict on one side, and you flip it over and you see the Geocoin Addict.
It's you.
It's you. But it's one of these coins that we designed and kind of knew where we wanted to go with it. But again, it's sort of a drawing, and I'll call it an engineering drawing. It's not quite as detailed as if you're building a bridge or something like that. But it's drawings of each of the individual components, and then an assembly to show how it all goes together. So there's definitely some technique that goes into creating a multi-part coin like that.
Yeah, like the ones we do that are like a stained glass coin. I think they're like 4-part coins. There's the centerpiece, centerpiece, front, back, and then usually a locking piece.
Yeah.
Wow. Oops. That's impressive.
Yeah,
I hadn't considered that. Now,
like that.
Yeah, the sun catchers.
Now, when you are working with a boy, I want to say designer, but that's not the right term. You're working with a geocacher who wants to make a geocoin.
Yeah.
I know there are outliers. You'll get the first design people love, and you have other people that after 100 emails back and forth, you're going to say, no, we can't do this for you because it's just taking too long. What is the average amount of communication going back and forth? If you had to pick are we talking 5 emails back and forth? Here's a design. Can you make that green? Oh yeah, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, occasionally you get the outliers, but I'd say the average back and forth is 2 or 3 revisions. Because usually what happens is you end up drawing something that you believe, feel represents what they've asked, what the person has asked for. And if you've nailed it, that's great. But you may not have it, or you may want to make some tweaks and changes. And then there's usually, by the time you're on the first revision, you're narrow, regardless of whether the first one was out to lunch or was really close. First revision is usually pretty close to going down the right pathway, and maybe only needs 1 or 2 at the most then. So
sometimes it takes a lot, though.
So sometimes it takes a lot, but I would say 2 or 3 to 4 maximum back and forth, but often less than that. And then
it can take a lot if somebody is a representative for a committee. And so they have an idea of what they want the coin to look like. They do revisions with us, and then they take it to the monthly meeting, and then they come back and go, yeah, that wasn't quite what we all wanted.
Right.
Yeah, designed by committee is the worst.
Designed by committee is like herding cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too many cooks spoil the broth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes, can we see what it looks like if we do this? So then we draw that, and then, we kind of liked it before, but maybe if we did that, and then
yeah.
So it does help if you've got a single point of decision making in it, and there's a relatively good understanding of what they're looking for at the end of the process. But then one of the things that can really help with that is if you know the idea of what you'd like to do, and you have maybe a few examples of the style of coin that you like. And our website has a huge gallery of things that we've made. And there's another gallery, which is a technical gallery, that shows some examples of the different types of metal platings and enamels and dyes and all that kind of thing. And if somebody kind of has a look through that and says, you know what, I really like the style of this coin, but I'd like it to have that on it, something else on it. And then providing us that kind of information really helps guide the designers to know kind of which direction to head from both a technical point of view and also an art point of view. And speaking of art, there's one thing that I just remembered. You mentioned right near the beginning, you talked about putting Mickey Mouse on a coin. And I think that's an important question, because we often get asked about Mickey Mouse, Superman,
Wonder Woman,
Wonder Woman, Aquaman, you name it, all kinds of cartoon characters. And one thing to keep in mind is these are all copyrighted images. They don't belong to you. They're not yours to use. They're not ours to use. And without permission from the copyright owner, they really shouldn't be used, and they can get you in a bit of trouble if you start using those, even if it doesn't matter if it's for money or whatever. It's irrelevant. You start putting Mickey Mouse on a coin, and pictures start getting out there. Oh, look at this coin I've got. Somebody posted on the internet. You can be sure pretty quick you're going to have Disney on your case, and that's not a pleasant place to be. So creating original art. If you really want Mickey Mouse, how about we draw an original mouse for you,
right?
Or something like that, because it is a thing. However, it is possible to get permission. We've put Snoopy on a coin one time
with permission.
With permission.
And there was another one we did. There was something filming over in Vancouver recently. There was something filming in Vancouver that had to do with a Superman.
Yep.
And the client wanted something Superman on the coin, and our spidey senses went off. We're like, well, let's see,
No, that's a different franchise.
And he just, they sent us the.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, but they were actually part of the film studio, and they were like, "Yep, no worries. This is." And they thanked us for basically protecting their brand. And
wow.
They were definitely authorized to use it. They were the ones filming the show.
And because we have licenses with people like the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, where we're using formal, like government-owned images, they want to know that we're a company that won't, that takes copyright seriously,
right.
that we won't infringe on other people's copyright, just like we'll be careful with theirs. We're not just, so if you're going to make a coin with an RCMP logo or image on it, then we're going to check the RCMP Foundation and make sure that we have the approval to go ahead and do that. Well, the same is true for other companies. We don't do the groundwork trying to get you permission to use Superman. No, you go do that bit, because you're probably not going to succeed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the copyright piece is an important piece of this whole process too.
Well, it's part of our agreement with the RCMP. It says the ethics that we have with the RCMP has to extend to our entire business.
Yeah. But it's good business. I mean, that's the way you should operate a good business. That's how you
exactly. And because you have that permission doesn't mean you can use it willy-nilly anywhere,
Exactly.
Just with certain, express permissions.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I've seen lately that you'll get a geocoin made, and let's toss it back to committee. I know it's one of your favorite topics, right? The committee says, you know what, we would like a special geocoin. It's the same one, just in a different color or different coating for us. So there's only going to be 10 of those. And maybe we send out some VIP coins of 20 of a different coating. How easy is that to do?
Super
in an order? Super
really easy.
Yeah.
Very easy. Doesn't change the price even. It might change it if they want like a more expensive plating. Like say they want, antique silver is one of the more costly ones. So if they say we want 10 in antique silver, it might put it up by 40 cents a coin. But
for those ones.
Yeah, it's part of the run. So say they want 300 coins and they want, 200 in this plating, and the other 100 they want divided into 5 different platings. Not a big deal.
Yeah, and that extends also to color, like enamel. So you're painting the coin anyways, but if you wanted to do some with a yellow ring around the outside and some with a green ring around the outside, for example, then that the idea, it's still going through the same production process, same production run, except they're just going to run a different color into those few. So the idea of creating a VIP coin is such that that's super easy from a production point of view.
One of the things we've done that's kind of cool on a coin is if you on the bare die, like on the die underneath, you can
say on the bare butt.
On the bare butt, no, the bare die. You can write things like, say you want to give a coin out as a thank you. So you could and make a coin that says thank you on the metal. So it gets plated, and when it's plated, you can see the word thank you. Well, the rest of the coins, you just apply, say, green paint. That area gets painted. So the word thank you is in a mid-level. It's not full height metal. It's halfway down. It's very clear. But then you just cover it with paint. And then the whole rest of the coins are not the thank you coins. They're just regular coins. So we suggest things like that to people if they want to make some that have special, rather than just engrave. Making the least creative way is to make an engrave area like we do for tracking numbers, but then use that to put thank you. Instead, we can, have some fun with it and, make it really sweet.
Nice. Now and here comes my ignorance coming out again. Even though I've talked about geocoins for years now, there's still things I don't know. Paint is obviously different than enamel. Enamel is thicker, right? And more, what do I say? More lustrous?
Okay. So when we talk about painting a coin, we're typically painting them with enamels.
Okay.
Enamel is a type of paint. And for the most part, you could say that there are two types of enamels that are primarily used on coins. There's what's called a soft enamel and another one called an imitation hard enamel. And there are some different terminologies used with regards to both of those, but that's essentially what they are. So the soft enamel, if you look at a coin that has paint on it and the paint kind of sits down into the recess of the coin, and you can still sort of feel a tactile texture of the raised metal, that enamel is called soft enamel. And it's when they put it when they're creating the coin, they put that soft enamel in there, and it just flows into all the lower areas, and it's actually got a bit of the surface tension will actually cause it to rise up on the edges just a little bit. So it has this kind of this little bit of a rise up on onto the raised metal, but it sits down into the recess of the coin. So that's the soft enamel. Then the imitation hard enamel is it's a thicker enamel that's placed into a recessed area on a coin, and they actually overfill the area, so it actually rises above the level of the metal, and then it's fired in an oven to cure it, and then it's polished flat so that it is then flush with the surface of the coin. And then that process would be repeated for each of the colors that there are in imitation hard enamel. When they do that, they plate the coin after they paint it. So the raised areas then, because they're polishing in between each color of paint, they left all the raised metal that's left is all going to be brass. So what they do is they electroplate it with the nickel or black nickel or silver, whatever they plate it afterwards. If you're doing the soft enamel coins, what they do is they plate the coin first, and then they put the paint in. So if you're looking at things like translucent paints, understanding whether the coin is going to be plated beforehand or afterwards plays a role in how you would use translucents. Because if you have brass is a yellow color, and if you're going to use a blue soft enamel translucent, and you plate the coin first with a silver, like a nickel, then your blue is going to look nice and blue. But if you do an imitation hard enamel and it's plated afterwards, the blue is going to have the bit of yellow brass showing through it, and it's going to look green. So understanding what happens when you do these in the different orders plays a role in the final effect of the coin and what it looks like.
And soft enamel coins are quicker to produce because the factory will put in, say there's 6 colors, they will put all those 6 colors in, and then they will fire the coin. Whereas the imitation hard enamel, if it's got 6 colors, it's going to get painted, fired up to 6 times.
Paint, fire, polish.
Yeah.
It's a much.
Wow.
So, like if someone says, I want a really quick coin, we say, okay, if you're happy with it if the look and feel of it all being soft enamel, that's the way to go. So that's one way we speed things up a bit.
Yeah. And there's nothing, one is not better than the other. Yeah, one's not better than the other. They just have a different appearance. We'll often use a combination of the two to help give some depth and texture to the art. But just like different processes.
Because the imitation hard enamel sits higher, it's like flush with the top level of metal. What we can do if we're doing, for example, say there's birds flying in the sky, we might do the sky in soft enamel to make it look more recessed, and then do the birds in imitation hard enamel so they sit proud of the sky. And trees, we could do, like if there's a landscape scene, we do the same thing with trees, make them in hard enamel and other stuff in background. Yeah.
That is
It's
It's a
fantastic.
little bit more expensive to do that, but
Sure.
Yeah. But it can be done. There's factories that can do that.
Yeah.
And you come out with a better looking coin because you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah.
we like to think so.
We like to think so. People often look at their coins and they go, wow, it's awesome. And they don't quite know why. But when you put
Mhm.
all this together and you just,
Mhm.
take the art and the creative things and just, mixing hard and soft for artistic effect. And people go, my coin looks better than the others. And I can't quite tell why, but I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty of an artist and designer, to get the most out of that coin. Okay. One more question.
Okay.
Okay.
This one comes from GSM times 2. What's a normal size run minimum? Now, I know again, there's going to be outliers to, I just want one coin and I want 10,000 coins, but where do you normally fall?
We often, so one of the things we often say from a Geocoin point of view, if you look at around 100 coins, that's usually where it starts to fall within most people's comfort zone from a price point. If you're used to thinking that a coin should be somewhere between like $13 to $18, somewhere in that sort
Canadian.
of mid-teens. I'm talking Canadian, yeah.
Canadian.
Then that's usually where you'll fall with around 100 coins. If you're looking at reselling coins, you want to be making a larger quantity to get the price down a bit. If you're really tight on budget, you can still work with 100 coins, but as we said, use some like soft enamels and things like that. You can still do beauty with a lower cost.
Yeah.
As soon as you start getting, there's a number of fixed costs that are involved. The way different companies quote different ways. We quote an all-in price. It includes shipping and import fees, everything. But it also includes the dyes and includes our time to do the production and create the art. So some of those costs are fixed costs and some of them are a per unit cost. And those fixed costs don't change whether you're making that 10,000 coins or 5 coins. So as soon as you start going down below 100, those fixed costs start growing pretty quickly on a per coin basis. And so usually 100, we do a lot of times we'll do 50 coins, but
yeah, 100,
most people feel comfortable on a per
better.
coin price value at about 100.
Yeah.
Chris and Helen, thank you for joining me. Just me this evening. You guys,
host. I don't know why you're a co-host. What's this co-host?
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm just the host tonight. Thank you so much. Now, where can people get a hold of you? Because now all these napkin sketches are going to be coming your way. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, if you go to our website, landsharkz.ca, there's contact us links there. There's lots of links. And then our direct email is connect@sharks.ca.
Sharks being SHARKZ. .ca.
Yeah, so connect@sharks.ca. Or go to the website, click one of the contact us links.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much. And folks, wait, I have to do this. I'm on my own tonight.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. Folks, thanks for joining us. Make sure you check out the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the Geo Gearheads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniac shows. Geo Gearheads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2022 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.